Hey, we've been streaming, so now we're officially recording. This is another episode of Hunting for History, and where we talk about how history intersects with our pop culture through either movies, video games, any other opportunities to bring the real world and its backgrounds into our entertainment. And I am honored and ecstatic to have the very Reverend Matthew Cowden along with me for this ride along.
Very reverend would be a title I don't necessarily have, but just reverend.
Just
Reverend's okay.
Reverend works. Well, and then
I'll take anything you say.
we want to talk about first impressions. Matthew and I were assigned as roommates for a convention for the church last summer. And almost immediately we were deep into discussion about how to address each other because I was not that steeped in the Episcopal faith. And Reverend came up and Matthew came up and then he leaned in and went, "You may of course call me Shepherd." And I was like, this dude is a dude after my heart. And we bonded completely over Firefly and
Yeah.
and all of its connections, and had a great time. And we've been in touch. And so when I started brainstorming people I wanted to have to come on for a Hunting for History episode, your name came right to the top of the list.
I am honored to be a part of the sharing tonight. And I have to let you know, my 19-year-old son, when I said I would be joining you for a ride, his dad, how do you know this guy? Where do you know him from? What's the name? The reason I asked you the name of the game was because he wanted to go check out the game and then bring me some videos to make sure I was fully
What's that?
aware what
Hi.
I might be coming
Okay.
along for.
This is Reverend Cowden. He's my friend from South Bend.
Well, hello there.
Keely's half creeping in. You have to come all the way
Hello,
in now.
hello. I
Okay.
see a hand. I see a
Okay.
hand.
Well, we're doing the show. Yes, we are. Miss Pam's watching too. Can I do my thing now? Go have mom talk to her. Dad's doing a thing.
I have enjoyed stumbling across you and the kids playing games on Facebook, or I don't know where it was. You had an overhead cam on a
Oh
board
yeah,
game.
we've
Just
come across all kinds of different ways to share and share alike.
how is your foot since the last time I saw you?
It is mostly recovered. I still have a pretty good scar. I part of why we ended up paired together is I was having a hard time finding accommodations because I had broken my foot less than 3 weeks before the convention. We weren't even sure if I was going to get out to Kalamazoo because I couldn't drive because it was my driving foot.
Yeah.
The hand, yes, of course. Delphira's in our chat, and she pointed out that the Kaylee hand is a frequent guest on my streams.
Ah,
She likes to kind of sneak in there just a little bit. So that's always fun. There's a lot of gunshots in town. Things are a little bit rough out here tonight, which is unusual for this part of town. And I like to be somewhere to kind of start off our story. So I'm going to screen share so you can see more of what I'm seeing, as can our audience. So I'm going to push that button, and then I'm going to push this button. And then I'm going to have to, because we had some technical difficulties that did not make it easy to start off our night. I lost all my settings. There we go. Well, that looks downright professional now on my end.
wow.
So this first place we're going to stop and talk about the church is where Siobhan started her journey into the Old West. She's a runaway from New York, is the way I've modeled her, and I've modeled her as a Irish Catholic immigrant who has fled out west at a ripe young age and came of age out here in the wilderness.
Hmm.
In fact, the costume she's currently wearing, let's see, can you wave to everybody? There you go. Is what she started the game with. And so, in honor of tonight, I have taken the liberty of going shopping and gotten her clothing a little more appropriate for this evening.
For riding along with a preacher. Look at that.
How'd I do, sir?
Oh, look at that. Look at that. It looks like she almost got preaching tabs on. It's the usual petticoat, but I see the buttons down the front, which is also traditional, and of course uh, the little strip of cloth looks like it might be in two, which would be
It is.
okay. That those are preaching tabs. Wow, good on you.
And then if the sun gets a little too rough for us,
Oh yeah,
Oh, wait,
yeah.
wait. I got a better one in here. There it is.
Oh yeah. See, I don't know if your viewers can see that I've got a similar chapeau.
Indeed, they can. We still have you on the stream. You are not going anywhere, sir.
Oh, okay,
We are
great.
including you
Okay,
in
great.
this. So
So when I take a sip of my water or my fire water, folks can tell.
we won't judge either direction. And thank you for the compliment, Pam. I like to think I did a pretty good job with this get up. So Blackwater, so that we can feed you a little bit here. The church we're going to stop at first. Going to get talking about some of the churches you would find out here. Blackwater is, hopefully I can ride through town really quick for a tour.
Sun's coming up.
Yep, sun's coming up over the lake. The town has a main thoroughfare. It has a theater. It has a saloon. It has a couple of stores. It has an actual dedicated tailor as opposed to a catalog store or general store. It also has, at the end of the street, so we come down the main street here, we've got the main theater.
Oh, now are those telegraph wires?
Oh, yeah, telegraph wires and electric light
Oh,
for a
what?
lot of these areas,
Oh,
or gas light. It's hard to say, but yeah, it definitely has a telegraph. But
I'm getting
I believe those
fancy.
are electric because that is an actual moving picture show.
Oh, all right, all right. Edison has made his way out west.
So
Look
it
at
gives
that.
you kind of a sense of the time and the location.
Okay, so we got some civilization going on here.
Yeah, I was talking to my wife, and we estimated probably somewhere between 2 and 5,000 people probably call this area home.
Okay,
And you figure all these apartments along here, maybe closer to it, maybe 1,000. We got a lot of
okay.
apartments downtown, over the stores, and then we have all the outlying farms. This is the region is called the Great Plains. So, give you kind of a sense of where we are in the game world right now. And it features, for good or bad, just one little church uphill, up here on the hill.
Yeah.
So I'm
Oh,
curious
yeah.
about your take of how they've done so far.
So that's a cemetery around the church. Well, they've done really well, including oh, and they've even got people going to church, or at least gathered like they might be having a confab before going in or coming out. That is a lovely, well done. They have put the church on the edge of town. Usually, schools and churches were on the edges of town. Not sure exactly why, except perhaps to keep them respectable. That is a pretty standard clapboard meeting house. That is, they might call that a church. They might call that a meeting house. The tower gives me the impression that they might call it a church because they still have a bell to call people.
Hmm.
And it still has some of the particular features that you might think of in a church that was back east.
Yep, definitely
Um,
has the bell.
mhm.
And then
Oh,
we were having a great conversation if that meant anything.
well, yeah, well, that would be the Celtic cross, of course, a cross with the circle around it. So it could be. I doubt in a nice Protestant town like this that Siobhan would be finding it as a Catholic church, but that cross could indicate Catholic or even Anglican. Some of the old country religion that might be part. What's the name of the church?
Well, I'm going to wait till this guy's done messing around before we get any
Okay.
closer. Because one of
All
the downsides to doing this live is I have zero control over the other fellas running around in the world. So
right.
let's get a safe distance away from that slaughter he just committed.
Oh,
There
my
we go.
son warned me about those. Yes.
The Church of the Holy Ascension.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
I don't know that that's a Catholic town, but Church of the Holy Ascension tells me that that is probably an Anglican church. Um,
really?
yeah, but likely, and unless there's some other intel that I don't know. But something like Church of the Holy Ascension is not 19th century revival, restoration movement, Great Awakening kind of, and that looks like a quasi-respectable liturgical church. Possibly named by the Methodists. The Baptists wouldn't have a name like Church of the Holy Ascension. The Methodists might, but I would say now the town has money clearly because you got lights and a stately theater. I would say that that church would be supported by a larger denomination.
Ah, see if I make up that hill. So a
Oh,
fairly
hey.
large community.
Yeah, well, anybody who's probably respectable in town goes to church on Sunday. So and it's the almost mandatory life of the social community to be at church and seen at church.
Now, is that
Uh,
church? I mean, did they make it too small, or is this a case where they have multiple services?
I think they probably packed it. Well, you tell me there's 1,000 people in town, they can probably squeeze in 200 in there, and with the best seats up front, and probably one service on a Sunday. I can't imagine in those days they'd have more than one. But of course, they wouldn't be doing communion anyway, so you wouldn't have to be worried about doing communion service. It would, especially in these days, have been that's my own wild animal here at the
Oh, okay.
house.
I wasn't sure. There's all
That's
kinds of sounds that pop up in this world. Not the least of which are ne'er do wells that can tell something's going on because I've been kind of circling through town for the last 15 minutes. So I'm sure he was thinking I was up to something he wanted to mess with, or or he just had a thing against Anglicans.
Yeah, it very well could be. Now the fact that they've got a cemetery of some uh, older stones. I mean, I know it's a semi-fictional world here, but it is. I would say those stones have been around for.
Pretty good
Oh,
stretch.
we can go in. Yeah. Well,
Well,
they.
we can do a little archaeology here.
Oh,
Let's see what we've got.
we see.
Now these ones I think are all worn down.
Okay.
There's some on the other side. Yeah, these are old enough that they're worn away.
That and they look like a soft stone anyway. So I would venture that they decided not to put names on them in the creation of the world, and or look at that. Okay, what have we got here?
A young black man. Oh, there's a
And
story.
and yeah, well, in yeah, especially with the nicest stone,
One of the nicest ones so far, yeah.
and that looks like it would be granite, which perhaps would last longer than so than the limestone or the soapstones they're using. And the fact that he's buried as a young black man here in a white cemetery says that he would have been important. And that is a thick granite stone.
Yeah, that's a solid marker. Makes you
That
kind of
is,
wonder. We've got some more. Oh, that's a glitch because that one's the date's wrong, and I'm not sure why because it says 1906. And that doesn't make sense. No separation of white and black in the cemetery. Yeah, we were kind of talking about that. I have to remember to watch the chat because it's all the way around on my third monitor.
sorry, go right ahead.
But we also have, let's see, what was this, 1873. Yeah, there's some pretty old markers down here.
Well, then the worn away ones would be easily 50 to 100 years old.
So this is definitely established.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, see, that's just snarky right there.
Let's say Samuel Makepeace.
Yep, 10th of May, 1879. His last breath smelled of whiskey.
Oh, oh well.
There's
Now,
there's a little judgment going on there. I feel like.
I would assume that would be his death date. They wouldn't have known his birth date. They got flowers in the. Somebody's taking care of those flowers in the windowsill.
Well, it's a good community. I like to think.
Yeah, yes, this is an established community with roots. And if they've got a
Okay,
cemetery that's been
house.
around now, but here's the. Well, I guess it would have been in the early 1800s that they decided to start burying people further out of town. Because sometimes in the Old West and in homesteads, you might bury a person in the 18th century. You'd bury them maybe on the plot of land that you owned. But early in the 19th century, you would have thought that it would be better to keep the bodies out of town because they had a belief that it was contaminating the water. Uh,
Mm,
uh, and, and of course, yards have always been a place so that you could be close to the resurrection, assuming that the church was receiving point. Hmm.
So here's a question I have to ask then. Would Siobhan be attending services here? Or would she just be kind of like hunting on a Sunday morning if she's still calling herself Catholic And it's an Anglican church that we have built here.
Depends on her standing in society, because that does not Church of the Holy Ascension, and with that design, and unless it is an Irish Catholic town, and it doesn't strike me as an Irish Catholic town, it would be Anglican, and she might be hiding in society, passing as a Catholic, except she's got that red hair, passing as an Anglican, except that she's clearly of Irish stock, and so they would question as to whether she was a true Church of England type person or Methodist. They'd probably assume she was Catholic, just by the look of her.
And probably the accent from New York.
That would do it too. Of course, all you'd have to do in those days, we just ask her to start reciting the Our Father in English, and if in Irish she would say Our Father who art in heaven, they would know immediately that she was Catholic, because the Anglican said Our Father which art in heaven. At the time.
Oh,
Yep.
that's an interesting twist.
Yep.
That feels like that we were taught as kids, where the fish symbol was the secret message to say who was in and who was out.
Oh,
It feels like it's almost that bad.
yeah. Well, and coming out west, people really stayed in their cliques by and large, or at least tried to. I think once you get this level of money and settled townness, there's a potential for multi-religious people to be in. Any Chinese people in town?
No.
Anyone of Asian descent here?
The only characters that we have encountered so far in the game that are of Asian descent are other players.
Okay.
Because you can do that. They have the full pantheon of options for character creation, which is kind of neat. You can be anybody, which I appreciate. And it's caused a small rift because I have a friend who's a Civil War reenactor, and she has seen my pictures of Siobhan and gone, "What is she wearing?" And it's like, well, we take
That is
some liberties.
that is the nicest train station I have ever
Oh,
seen.
this train station,
Yeah.
it's actually a riverboat.
Oh, riverboat. Okay. Well, that's why it's so wide. Okay, that makes sense.
Yep. And according to Pam, there is the gunsmith in Saint Denis is of Asian descent. So, and he's on our stops for this trip, because I really want to show that joint off to you. So what we're going to hire a stagecoach up to Strawberry
Okay.
for a little bit of contrast to hanging out here in Valentine. So while that's loading, I'm going to check a couple quick things over here to see if there's anything relevant to us. Nope.
I would say Siobhan would probably not be just by the look of her, probably would not be attending church there unless she were trying to hobnob with the local elite and trying to make some merchant deals. I don't think she would darken the doors of that church.
Is that just, excuse me, have religious respects, or just out of the, I'm not good, I'm not in that caste of society that lets me go to church?
Not right, not in that caste of society, unless you tell me that she's trying to purchase land in the town, and rather than
She ain't got that kind of money.
yeah.
I,
Yeah.
I say that actually over the last 2 months of playing, she's got that kind of money, but we're going to take our time getting there. So this is Strawberry.
Okay. Oh, a little more modest of a place.
This is up on the frontier. This is in the foothills of the Grizzly Mountains, which are
Oh.
their fictional Rockies,
Uh-huh.
or possibly the Appalachians.
Appalachian. Yep.
And that's where we get to have some liberties with what we think of what we're finding, because it could go either way. They don't really specify. But you can kind of see it kind of disappears up into the mountains there. And if I recall correctly, it should be right around here. Maybe it's back the other direction. There's a little tiny church here. Or am I thinking Valentine? I might be thinking Valentine now that I'm here. I don't think this community has a church.
What that would look like if they had a church, it would be under a tent.
That might very well be the case. I think I got the wrong city. It's Valentine's got the little church. So we'll head over there.
But wherever 2 or 3 are gathered, they can have church.
So how common was that? Since we're out here in Strawberry,
Well, that is a hard life that people are living, and I know that the circuit riders of the 19th century would have made their way to such small towns, uh, both for economic and religious reasons, as to see what the possibilities were for a future church, as well as to provide encouragement.
Hey,
For
Mike, welcome to the chat. So, SW Mike just popped in. So you said circuit riders. Is that then like they would ride a circuit weekly, daily?
it would, what was it, 6 to 8 weeks, maybe two to 3 months from time to time. They would make the circuit from town to town, from small, I can't really call them cities, but from town to town to
Establishments?
establishments, established outposts and frontier cities, frontier towns to be riding their horse in. They would say they would have the Bible in one hand and a gun in the other, and bring the good word and as well as some order. So I would certainly see in that place we were just at a circuit rider stopping by uh, if he thought there was a place to lay his head down for a night. And
So then he would do services for
it
like the next morning, have a morning prayer service before he moved on again, or
could have been, or it could have been an evening service, as they were, you know, you might have a choice to either go to what would count for the saloon and have a drink, or choose to go hear the preacher, and the social group would kind of make their decisions based on who thought they needed religion and who wanted nothing to do with that sort of thing. Um, they would see how many souls they could say, okay, that is gorgeous.
so
Some,
before we even head into town, I do have to kind of ask because like the Catholics are famous for having a male only clergy, and over the years, other denominations have taken it on to open up the ranks. Since we are in the late 19th century, we're in 1890. If a woman did feel called to preach the good word, where what denominations of Christianity at least would she be able to do that?
in the Christian world, women would uh, often have to start their own denomination here in the New World. There were there have been some spiritual movements of varying degrees of Christianity that cropped up in the 19th century. Most of the mainline denominations and the evangelical denominations did not uh, start any serious consideration of licensing or ordaining women to preach until the 20th century. Uh,
Okay.
but that doesn't mean that there weren't women preachers. It's just, and it didn't mean that there weren't women in positions of leadership and certainly providing major spiritual support to denominations and side religions. But I would say it would be highly unusual to have a woman preacher riding the frontier, especially.
Well, it just shows how far we've come as we move
My,
along.
my, my, my grandmother, by the way, was one of the first women ordained in the
Awesome.
Methodist Church in 1968.
Well, and Mike just popped into chat to share that his great grandfather was a circuit preacher as well, although that was in the 1960s and 70s.
It is well, with the way that churches are shaping up these days. I think all preachers are looking possibly at becoming somewhat circuit riders.
How many far can you spread your Zoom links?
That's exactly it.
So this is another stop off. So Valentine, there's Main Street
Okay.
in
Ooh,
all of its glory.
that is a sizable church for that little Main Street.
Yeah. Now Valentine is like there's a lot of farmland near here,
Mhm.
so whereas the plains are mostly wild. Almost all of this territory here has been developed. It's all marked off with fences, and there's actually an oil field
Uh,
about I would I'd call it an hour's ride out of town. In game
mhm.
terms, it takes about 5 minutes, but nobody wants to spend an hour clicking on the kick your heels button.
So there is money in this town.
So we've got this one here, overseen by the. Hang on, let me grab my binoculars so you can get a better view.
Valentine Church, Reverend Isaac Hampton, all are welcome. Oh, there is a Restoration Church if I ever saw one.
So tell me more
Prayer,
about restoration churches.
okay, prayer books provided. Now that's a hmm. Well, the all are welcome. I mean, you might in game terms probably the creator was sort of looking at the Episcopal Church signs because
Ah,
that is a modern Episcopal phrase. All are welcome.
got it.
Uh, we have that on all of our Episcopal Church signs. Now, prayer books. I would say that the Restoration churches did not necessarily have uh, a prayer book tradition the way the Anglicans did. So yeah, I guess you could say there's sort of a welcome. There's sort of a mix here in that welcome because calling it the Valentine Church, the name of the city and the church, is deliberately downplaying any sense of denomination or creed.
I know, and
Um,
we're basically telling them that's not good enough for us. We're going to figure it out,
right.
or we're going
Well,
to give it one.
and there was a movement in the 19th century, and really part of these old churches coming across the West were the we would call them now the evangelical tradition, but
Okay.
they really were trying to say, can't we all just be one? And we'll do the Lord's Supper, and we will pray together, and we will meet together. Um, it's interesting because it's got those windows that are even an homage to Gothic stained glass, and they've even got color in them. So they have borrowed elements from the Anglican and Methodist traditions by having colored glass and those sort of New Testament looking windows. If you think of the New Testament as having two different, the tablets of Moses, or sorry, the Old Testament, the Testaments of Moses,
Mm. So
uh,
the shape of the window is meant to evoke the tablets.
sort of, but also more to sort of do an homage to the Gothic architecture from the old world. So let there be light. Yeah. Okay, so uh, churches in this time period, especially those that were moving away from the traditional structures, although the window has sort of a traditional trefoil. Uh,
That circle.
yeah, well, it's got the three kind of the Trinitarian look there, which is probably more for decoration. But let there be light, of course, comes from Genesis, where God said, "Let there be light," and
And
there
there
was light,
was.
and it was good. But more so, what especially some of this is true for Anglican and Episcopal as well as this evangelical movement, moving away from stained glass and allowing the clear light
Mm.
of nature to flow in so that you didn't have to have a lot of complications between you and God, um, which is what things like let there be light. Uh,
What's interesting to me too, now that we're kind of taking this in, um, the church is facing to the west. So it's 6 p.m. and we're getting a lot of direct sunlight on that, which means in the evening, that place is going to be lit up. But in the
mhm.
morning, when the sun's coming up on the other side, we have the pasture is going to be backlit.
What's on the other side for what's behind?
The other side of this church, in that sense, is mountain.
No, I mean on the architecture
Oh,
on
the
the.
architecture very unexciting. Just the stained glass window behind where I would assume the altar would be.
Yeah, probably a table.
Yeah,
We could call it an altar, but they probably had a low lying table.
there's the Catholic in me.
Right.
Can't shake
It,
that.
that yeah, they've got a mix of sort of Anglican-ish more Methodist styles. I would even peg that as a possibly Methodist church. Um,
Cool.
yeah.
So another place that now that's a big church for a small town. So from what you're telling me, it sounds like there might be a gentleman family who's made a lot of money on their ranch and they built this church.
That would be a reasonable conjecture about how that big church would be there.
Now, check me on this because this is what my writer brain wants to do. And the guy's name is Valentine.
Ah,
Do you think there's
well,
anyone that's audacious?
yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Well, if You know, if you got that much money to name the town after you, you're going to name the church after you as well.
Well, that's kind of neat.
Storm Survivor, 1898. Huh.
That raises questions now, don't it? So within the last couple of years, some storm came through here, and this building survived it.
Hmm.
That's some interesting stuff there, and some neat church history we're picking up, and some fun. All right, so we've got,
I wonder what didn't survive.
well,
Was it a storm that brought a flood? Because it was on a hill,
made it through. I
maybe.
don't know. There's a lot of lore that they don't give you a lot of hints to with this version of the game, and I haven't played enough of the main game to know. Plus, they tend to be very character focused. There's not usually a lot of backstory. They just
Okay.
want to focus on the people in the moment, which is kind of a shame because there's so much neat history here. Right down to the guy manning the parcel station for the post. All the details. Okay, we are at 8:40, so we're going to jump to our last stop just because it's just too neat not to visit it.
Yep. Yeah, I was wondering. You said there was a New Orleans style.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely there is, and we have got to pop in there.
Now, do you know anything about these churches from the game aside from my little pontifications and conjectures here?
Well, I know that in the main game they might do something with them, but in the online game, which is the only one I've really played, there's very, very little lore that comes out about the locations. It's all very character driven. So it's this person needs you to go deal with this person because they've been done wrong, and did he shoot who, and who framed who for murder. And you meet lots of really colorful and interesting characters.
Creature?
A little bit cliche, a little bit tropey. There's an Irish gentleman that's very evocative of a version of Billy the Kid, or the Kelly Boys, perhaps. And
Some
then,
who smell like whiskey on their tombstone.
yeah, there is a Billy the Kid stand-in called the Boy, who's out to prove himself at his age. So we are now in what's called Saint Denis,
Oh my.
which I don't know about you, but this kind of feels a bit like a New Orleans, don't it?
Oh yeah.
And this is a huge town. I actually feel awkward riding through it because, hey, Professor Weaver and Uncle Bill, I did see that you had popped in. So welcome to the chat. And actually, I remember where I'm going. This town's so big, I get lost in it.
Hmm.
But I don't even really like riding through it because I feel very out of place. I feel like I should be in a motor car in here.
Yeah.
But what's kind of neat with it, let me change costumes one more time into, there we go. A little more Old Westy, but still kind of nice. There's the electric light for the Saint Denis Times
Sure.
Tribune. And there is a cable car that runs through town.
And I don't see homeless people anywhere.
Yeah, well, there's a couple. You do come across some people down on their luck, but not that many. Actually, you don't come across that many people so it doesn't overload the game engine.
See, the church did its job. It fed the poor. Oh, look at that. That is a Catholic church.
Church of the Oh, yeah.
Oh.
Are we?
Oh. Oh. They could have done a little consulting. I mean, the town is called Saint Denis. So, is there another church in town called Saint Denis?
I have not seen one, no.
Because my assumption would be that the town was named after Saint Denis or Saint Denis,
Hmm.
and you should have a Catholic church named after Saint Denis.
Now, that said, Church of the Holy Blessed Virgin, unless my comparative religion's off, that's a very Catholic sounding church.
Well, okay, now I see that. Now I see. I was struck by disciples of the Lord. I mean, okay, so maybe meet for worship every Lord. This sign, kind of like the other one, is a mixture of. What is the last line say?
Let's see. It's
Daily.
every Lord's Day at 8 a.m. Father O'Leary, little on the nose. Sittings free daily collection.
So you know what the sittings free means? You used to rent your pew.
Really?
Well, you rent or purchase your pew. You had a designated pew. In some of these really old churches,
Okay.
they were boxed. They were a boxed pew that you would own or rent. And so sittings free. There are still some churches in Northern Virginia that will proudly say they were one of the first rent-free churches. Uh,
That's awesome. Sort
so the
of.
fact that somebody had done their research, say sittings free daily collection. I mean, daily means I guess there's a daily mass as well.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, and then every Lord's Day at 8 a.m. Boy, you got to get up early. But I guess in those days you would have been fasting, and so you take mass fasting since the night before. So you want to get that communion in quick so you can actually have breakfast at some point.
It's okay.
But only one service, and that's at 8 o'clock. They don't call it mass, which is interesting. That is definitely this is Gothic architecture. So you see those same sort of
Mm-hmm.
Old Testament commandments of Moses looking sort of same structure.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but again, the pointed arch was a way of, and they've got sort of hidden buttresses in there, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
with that roof. So they've got. Uh, hmm. But I'm curious that they put the words disciples of the Lord in really big letters. Now, one of the things they could be doing, just pontificating on what the possibilities are in that town, is look, there's the flying buttresses. Look at that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they they could be. Oh, no, they're not flying. They're just buttresses.
They're buttresses, though. But that's definitely, it's very evocative of that Gothic cathedral
Yeah, it's like a
stylings.
little mini Notre Dame. But
Mm-hmm.
it's possible they're hiding the fact that they're Catholic by putting disciples of the Lord in font that is 3 times as big as anything else, um, just just to make the Protestants say, okay, they can stay.
Because they're,
Um,
yeah.
is that a mausoleum?
I think this is a mausoleum. Or maybe it's just a Gothic storage shed. Doesn't seem to have a lot of interesting markings on it otherwise.
Hmm.
But
Power plant?
I'd,
No.
I'd almost wonder if it was the rectory. But it doesn't seem to have a
No. Well,
doesn't have a warmy, homey feel to it. Groundskeeper's house, maybe, or building.
oh, you know what? To take a look at it again, it could be.
Well, again, we are in a proto New Orleans, or
Yeah.
a faux New Orleans. So there's no basement here.
That could be an extra storage shed. Well, okay, think what the designers probably thought of was when you build a Gothic-looking structure, there is always a structure next to it that you have the tools for building it, whether you're cutting stone
Mm,
or you're making repairs on it. So that would be the workman's shed or the mason's tool working area for working on the church.
yeah. There's actually a very small. Let me put a pin on it really quick, because we're gonna ride past it on our way to while we're here in Saint Denis. An interesting little thing I stumbled onto when I was prepping for tonight, and I am so grateful to Rockstar Games for creating a game that has completely absorbed my summer and kept me out of a pandemic funk, and for doing whatever it took to keep the game stable tonight. Because I'm sure there's somebody out there who's like, I can't play for more than 10 minutes. This dude gets some old bald priest on and he's connected for an hour. Oops, I missed my turn. Because this town is huge. And once again, I kind of feel like I should have a motor car or something.
Yeah, you're a little down market there.
Well, and I looked too. 1899, there were steamer cars you could buy.
Yes, they were. Yes, yes.
Then we got this little gem I stumbled into.
Oh, well, that's where the Protestants are meeting.
Ouch.
Sorry. Is there a name on it, you think?
I did not see one. Let's take another quick tour. See if we can spot one. Um, I think this may have been an afterthought or somebody's pet project when they were laying out the town. Like, what are we going to put here? Well, let's put another little chapel or something.
Well, I'm glad that they did because a town this size would at least have two. um, because you at least have two.
You know, it's interesting because it's almost the size of Blackwater's church. When you
Hmm.
really look at the square footage, it's probably maybe a couple hundred square feet less,
Okay.
and it's just sort of nestled in here.
Oh, and look, they got a well out
They
back.
got their
Well,
own well. It's a
that's
nice
handy.
touch. Well, and it opens up onto the street, which means the whole neighborhood can come to the well here.
Oh yeah, that's a preaching resource right
Yeah,
there.
great way to strike up a conversation,
Yep.
check in with everybody, see if someone's in need,
Preach about baptism at the well.
or ask who needs a new pair of shoes. If there's anything the church can provide, if there's funds. And then our last stop, which this is how I know this is meant to be in New Orleans, is the first time you get a job that sends you in here. And then I'm gonna do this all respectful like, because come on, Mr. Sherman. I have named my horses in ways to anger the South. I started off with General Grant, then I went to Colonel Darlin, and that's Mr. Sherman. I'm a bad man.
You are a Yankee.
I am.
So.
This is the cemetery.
Oh, look at that. Oh, that is a beautiful above ground cemetery. Oh,
Like I said, very evocative of New Orleans.
yep. These are where you go on the ghost tour. Oh,
You learn about all the people here.
yep.
Now, I don't know if the art department ran out of energy, time, or desire, but most of them are unmarked.
Uh,
But I think we just don't have the time and energy.
right, but it's a popular graveyard.
Oh, from all the lit candles?
No, they're dying to get in. You're welcome.
Wow.
Sorry.
That's fair. That's legit.
Yep.
But
Yep. My,
it's
my kids have only heard that joke about a million times.
it's a pretty well maintained graveyard, all things
It,
said.
it is clean. Oh, look, there's some candles lit,
Hmm.
which means someone's going by to honor the person on that spot,
Yeah.
or do
So
voodoo.
it's a pretty yeah. Of course, once in a while, I think somewhere in here there's a campsite, which some of the storyline leads you. Yeah, there it is.
So the other question would be, have they put all the graves facing east?
I don't think so. I think they kind of just
No,
threw them
no.
all in.
I mean, it's not. It doesn't happen all the time in graveyards anyway. But the idea is for the people to face the resurrection.
Well, that makes sense. I can't quite make out what that says. I think it has to do with the name of the cemetery. Oh,
Either that, or the name of the person who's buried inside there.
there's a nice bit of sculpture.
Oh, look at that! Don't blink.
Somebody. Oh yeah, because it'll. Yeah, definitely do not blink. Don't take your eyes off it. But yeah, so that kind of takes us in there and some neat tidbits. You, sir, I believe, have another engagement
I
in a
do. I do.
very short while. Can you do me
Mhm.
a huge favor? Do you have a link for it?
I uh, I probably can get one, as a matter of
Okay,
fact.
while we're wrapping, why don't you grab that link and Facebook it to me in the messages, and I will throw it over here into chat. Oh, Mike also points out this is probably a really loud place too.
And the other,
On account of all the coffin.
well, I was waiting to see what the rail station looked like because I hadn't quite gotten it yet. I'm sending you my Facebook link over on your
Okay.
message chat, but I think I didn't get a chance to tell you about the denominations coming out west on the rail car.
Oh
'Cause
yes.
the Irish Catholics like Siobhan would have come through mostly as workers
Hmm.
building the rail station, and then of course prior to that, the Methodists came through on horseback. Some of those circuit riders we were talking about. The Presbyterians actually took the rail that the Catholics built. So the Presbyterians came out west when the railway was finally built. The Episcopalians, Anglicans actually made their way on the rail car as well, only after the dining car was actually established.
Naturally. Naturally. Can you resend that link but send it to my Facebook Messenger?
Yeah,
It's easier for me to
absolutely.
copy and paste. And as tongue in cheek as that is, it's probably not completely wrong either.
No, right.
In every joke,
We,
there's an ounce of truth.
yes, as an Episcopalian, I can say the slam against Episcopalians was that we were Methodists with money.
Ouch.
Well, it's because we were in bed with the government and the power structures, and of course that's part of our chief conversation right now. So yeah, so where I'm heading off to is the offices, the night office, the night prayer of the church, called Compline, which I technically speaking, that priest in Saint Denis would be saying the Compline office as well, and be required to say the prayer offices of the church.
Probably not at 2:30 in the morning, but
Oh, well, actually, 3:30 in the morning would be the Matins office.
oh,
The monks would be waking up at 3:30 in the morning. The priest, a diocesan priest like that, would wake up about 5 or 7, and well, 6 o'clock before the 8 o'clock service, what they called it a worship service at Saint Denis. Uh, he'd be doing the morning prayer rite and then going off to mass if he was following his
sounds cool.
custom.
Well, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you for hanging out with me tonight
Well,
and
I would love to. Would love
bringing me up to speed on some things. And I hope everyone that hung out with us in the chat learned something along the way. I try really hard to bridge just playing the game and having fun and screwing around with my friends and having opportunities to put together some actual really good serious content where we get the people who can answer the questions that I always ask. Because that's the thing that I hate about myself is I play this, I go, gosh, I wonder what the reality is. Where does the art stop and the history begin? Because
Yep.
it's that crossover. And just talking tonight about some of the places where we think we know what they saw when they designed the art, and then what we can infer from it is just such a great conversation.
And
So,
Rob, I love your style. Thank you.
well, thank you so much for hanging out. We will. I think we should do this again.
I would love to. I would love to.
I
And
think
then,
we should say maybe we'll focus on one church and we'll spend like 45 minutes dissecting that
oh,
community.
that would be great.
And I got more backstory for Siobhan because now I know that she probably from ages 14 to 18 was pretending to be Anglican just
She just to get by.
just to get
Yeah.
by, which had to create even more stress when she came of turned 18 and the game started and she met up with Lottie and started their little business.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of neat backstory there. Oh, and Uncle Bill will probably be popping in for that because he's really excited to hear about it too. He's loving this idea. So
I
I
would be.
will not keep you, sir.
Wait, I was just going to say, I'll be interested to know if Siobhan is also carrying, if she's an Irish Catholic, if she's carrying any objects with her of devotion.
I'm going to do some research on that. That'll be my next bit of her backstory, I think. I've already got her out here. I did a show a couple weeks, about a week and a half ago, where I went through Irish in New York
Ah,
and what might have caused her to flee New York as a young teenager. Because, I mean, why would you do that? Why would you go out and live on the open plains when you're in a big city? And it was a lot of fun to talk about and
yeah.
research. So I guess that's my next project.
Well, blessings. I'm going to see if I can get Facebook to do what sometimes Facebook does well or doesn't do well.
All right.
And great, great,
It
great.
was great talking. And if we're wrapping up here, do you have any final word?
Thank you, Master Storyteller.
Thank you, Shepard. And until next time, everybody out there, y'all stay safe.
Peace. Bye.